Good afternoon. Thanks everyone for joining us. As we have our conversations with local organizational leaders, we continue to highlight ways that our communities are addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion. And in the process, learning more about each of these agencies and having some opportunities to network and consider opportunities in these organizations where our students might like to work or serve. Today we have with us Nicole Harrison, who's the Executive Director of CAP Services. So welcome, Nicole, and I'm going to let you go ahead and give us a little bit of background about yourself and how you came to be the Executive Director at CAP Services.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Susan. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. And it does say host disabled participant screen sharing.
I'll fix that. I had it, and then, like I said, we had a glitch, so should be good now.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. There we go. Well, wonderful. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicole Harrison, and I am the CEO of CAP Services. I have been in this position for just over a year. However, I have been with CAP Services for over 20 years. I grew up in Michigan and graduated from the University of Michigan with a degree in psychology. I always knew I wanted to do something working with people, but I was not quite exactly sure what that would look like. So I explored a multitude of opportunities, including healthcare and youth development. And I just didn't find quite the right fit until I came to CAP Services. So when I first applied for a position with CAP, I had a very, very limited scope of what the agency actually did. I was offered a position working with families in a literacy program, and I decided to just embrace the new opportunity. Wasn't quite sure what I was going to be involved with, but I really enjoyed the mission of the organization and felt passionate about that. And so I enjoyed working with the families in that program. We use a strength-based model of family development. But I decided that more of my passion was on the side of program development, evaluation, and quality improvement. So when I was offered the position of an assistant director, I really embraced that opportunity to challenge my skills in a different way. And so then over the years, I was able to continue that passion of program oversight in subsequent positions with CAP as the Human Development Director, eventually the Vice President, and then the Chief Program Officer. And now I assumed my role as CEO just a year ago. So you can think about how that might have been interesting starting a new role of this magnitude during the middle of a pandemic. So lots of uncertainty, but I won't share those details at this moment. That's a story for another time.
Well, I'm sure it really helped that you had a strong foundation with the organization and a really good understanding of how things functioned, as opposed to maybe being somebody brand new who hadn't worked with the organization.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think a couple of the things that you mentioned, Nicole, probably resonate with our students about being kind of unsure of your path. It's like, I know I want to help people, but I'm just not sure what that's going to look like. And oftentimes there are these agencies or organizations in our communities that we only know a very little bit about, that we have just a sliver of information and often don't understand the magnitude of the work and the diversity of the work that's happening. So I appreciate that you said, you had a kind of a limited scope of what CAP Services really had to offer. And I think that's probably the case. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, I love that you said that you just embraced the opportunities to challenge your skills and grow. Where so often people are in their comfort zone and they do what's easy and what they know, and it's hard to do something different and to tackle those challenges. So I appreciate that a lot. So tell us a little bit about some of those skills and how you've grown in your position.
Sure, absolutely. So CAP Services is a nonprofit community action agency. And so we evolved in out of the war on poverty in the 1960s. And I'll show a different slide just so you can get a little bit more of a picture of the types of services that we offer. And so what I really enjoy about working with CAP is the variety of services we're able to offer, because we know that the primary goal and mission is to help people experiencing poverty to have resources and opportunities to obtain economic security. And so it involves a number of different approaches and diversity of services. And so we have what we call our 7 focus areas, and those are here in this visual. And that involves a multitude of skills in helping to navigate what might be needed for each of these areas and what our local communities do need. So that is something that is unique about CAP Services is we identify what those local needs are. We are our own private nonprofit 501c3. There are other community action agencies throughout the state and throughout the country, but we're all our own individual entities. So what's great about CAP Services is it offers a variety of different opportunities for people to become engaged with our work, dependent upon an individual's interests or knowledge or skill set, to help provide some of those resources, either in a staff capacity, volunteer capacity, or if they are in need of services themselves.
So I think that visual really helps to kind of see the broad range of services. Again, people might have a very limited experience and think, well, that's all CAP Services is. But it's really addressing well-being in a very holistic way for individuals. And again, love that it's really focused on local needs, addressing what is needed in your community rather than, just trying to do something that's going to work for everyone across the nation. That's just not possible.
Exactly. And then on that point, so CAP does conduct a needs assessment every 3 years we have a primary service area of 5 counties. So here's a visual of that. So CAP's service area is right here in central Wisconsin for these 5 counties. And so we don't necessarily operate the same programs in each of our counties. So even that is unique and diverse, dependent upon the local needs and the local resources and our capacity to deliver services in each specific community. So we don't necessarily operate all of the same programs that are here in Portage County. In Outagamie County, for example, Outagamie County has a number of other nonprofits that are providing resources. And so what CAP helps do is help identify what those needs are and those gaps are to provide those local resources for individuals in those local communities. And we use the voice of people served to help identify those needs. So our needs assessment includes a survey of people experiencing poverty as part of that survey to identify where the gaps are and what some of those local needs might be and how we might be able to help address some of those needs. And so our most recent survey was conducted in 2019, and our next one will be conducted next year in 2022, and we're already in the planning stages for that.
So as you talk about individuals experiencing poverty, what qualifies as poverty?
Well, that's a great question. So the definition of poverty that we use is more broad. So it's not just limited income. However, that is certainly a factor. There is an economic component to poverty. So the federal poverty level for many of our programs is at or below 200% of that federal poverty level. That would define a low income household or a household experiencing low income. Others use a measure of counting median income, and most of our programs that have that level are looking at 80% of the county median. So that's a more broad definition of that economic poverty level and is more localized because it is based on the local community. But we also look at lack of resources on a variety of different spectrums, whether that's emotional health, mental health, lack of access to safe and affordable housing. So it has that economic component, but also that access to resources component as well.
It's interesting that you mentioned affordable housing. Tomorrow, our guest is from the Stevens Point Housing Authority. So we're going to talk a lot more about housing as an issue. And one of the things that we know about our agencies is they do collaborate and work together. So I know that, you know, there's some overlap in the work that you do and trying to support one another to work with those resources rather than everyone working in isolation, trying to recreate and invent programming.
Yes, so we certainly embrace a number of partnerships across our service area, and we know we cannot do this work alone. It is dependent and reliant upon community partnerships and collaboration. And affordable housing is one example of that. And we also look at that work across a multitude of our programs. For example, our skills enhancement program is a job skills and training program, and we work with a number of technical colleges and different employers to help bridge those gaps, to help individuals obtain that training and the skills that they need in order to get a higher paying job and then have access to employment after that training. So we certainly are, we do look at our partnerships across the board. That is definitely a large piece of the success of these community networks. Excuse me, I will share that I am recovering from a cold for those of you viewing. So I have a little tickle in my throat right now. I apologize for my voice.
And talking always makes it worse. And here we are making you do a lot of talking.
Yes, I thought I would be okay. I haven't done a lot of extended talking this morning in preparation, so it's starting to kick right now, but I should be okay.
As you talk about local needs and really getting to the individuals who need the services, what are ways that you connect and communicate, and how do people find out about what you have to offer? I know I follow your Facebook page, but I don't know if that's something that a lot of other people do.
Yes, absolutely. So CAP does have a social media presence. We have our own Facebook page for CAP services for our agency as a whole. And then some of our programs also have individual pages. So you can find more detailed information for CAP's early childhood education services. They have a Facebook page. We also have one for CAP's Family Crisis Center. And we have one for CAP's Jobs and Business Development Division and one for CAP's Rental Housing Division. So we have a variety of different pages. Most of our information is found on our main page, but we do have individual pages with detailed information there. And we have a website, and we keep that updated regularly with information. And you can find us at capservices.org. And there's a lot of information on that website. To connect to the various programs. You can search by county, you can search by type of program or type of service you're looking for. So it's pretty easy to navigate.
Good to know where to look. So would you say that the internet and just a website search is how most people interact or find out about what you have to offer?
I would say it's a combination. So we have a variety of print materials available in all of our counties. We share that with community partners. They're available in English, Hmong, and Spanish. And so we do try to outreach in that way. A majority of people hear about us from word of mouth. So from other people who've worked with our agency, whether from a community partner or from another participant in one of our programs. That's probably where a majority of the people we work with find our services.
Awesome. Other highlights of programs that you want to share with students as they think about either ways that they could become involved with CAP services as a student with fieldwork or practicum, or potential careers into the future?
Sure. So we do post all of our job opportunities on our website. Again, that's capservices.org. And we host volunteers and interns in a variety of our programs. So we do have an engagement and communications specialist who does navigate where those opportunities are within the agency and make sure that people who are interested in working with our agency or connecting find an opportunity or a spot to land. Just this year, I know we currently have 3 interns who are active at this current moment throughout our counties, and placement can be in any one of our 5 counties, depending upon the preference of the individual. And we do certainly encourage people to reach out if they're interested, and we will work to find a fit because we believe in experiential learning. And so we certainly embrace and welcome those opportunities for students or community members as either a volunteer capacity or again, as a staff member or an intern, paid or unpaid. We do offer some paid internships as well.
We've been fortunate to have some students work through CAP services in a variety
Wonderful.
of areas. So we love the work that you do. And again, it's an opportunity for students to really learn more about the county where they live, because most of our students actually are from this region that you serve. So I think that's important. As you really are intentionally addressing issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like I said, I follow your Facebook page, and so I've seen a lot of posts that have really been bringing those messages to individuals. And then even as you talked about your print materials being in Hmong and Spanish, can you talk a little bit about how you are reaching really diverse audiences in these 5 counties?
Absolutely. So that has become a focus of our work over the last several years. I'm going to stop my screen share here. So we have a variety of bilingual, bicultural staff. We actually hired an additional 4 staff just this year to help with our COVID-19 outreach efforts, because we really think it's important that individuals feel that we have trusted messengers from the community to share what the resources are and what the opportunities are. And so we really wanted to make sure that we had that internal capacity to address those needs. And so in all of our communities, we do provide those resources. It's not program specific or county specific. We have what we call community resource specialists now. So anyone from across our 5 counties can call an 800 number and access somebody for support in either English, Hmong, or Spanish. And I think that has really helped with the outreach for helping to serve the population in our service area. And so those are some efforts that we've been including over the most recent years. We've been putting a lot of focus on training and development of our staff and our board to build that internal capacity and knowledge of diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts and resources. We recognize this is a journey. And some have told us, we're ahead of the journey, but it doesn't feel like that at times. It feels like, okay, we need to keep moving forward. And so I think it's just something that it's important that we're intentional about our focus. So every year we develop annual corporate goals, and we want to make sure that we include that equity lens when we're looking at our strategic goals. And so for 2021, we do have strategic goals that have that equity lens. And so I'm going to screen share here again. So here's an example of our 4 primary goals, which revolve around client experience, staff experience, community engagement, and operational excellence. And then within each one of those areas, we make sure we have that focus on equity. And so we have some specific equity goals as well. to make sure we know we have a lot of work to do, and we're committed to it. And so this year we're going to create a more broad agency-wide diversity, equity, inclusion plan, so we can better articulate our mission and values around diversity, equity, inclusion, and intersectionality. We also want to promote that equity and opportunity for staff. So we're looking at our HR policies and procedures and our hiring practices. And then again, that comprehensive training for staff to make sure that we're approaching our work in ways that do promote those values. And then we're looking at that client experience as well, and how we might better reach individuals who perhaps aren't aware of our services. And so we're looking at how we might better engage more individuals from across the community and more marginalized populations. So this also, we just started a partnership with Us2 Behavioral Health from the Fox Valley area, and they're conducting a climate assessment across our agency that will guide our next steps in this more comprehensive plan for the agency. So we're very excited about that work. But again, it's a journey, and we've had some efforts over time, and we just keep building on those efforts. And so here's just some things that we have done. Our service delivery model, we're very strength-based, holistic. We use a trauma-informed care approach in our work with families. And so we talk about our work with families as a partnership. We're not telling people what to do or how to do it. It's a partnership. And so we have that racial equity training that's at the staff level and at the board level. We engaged with Create Portage County's book read, How to Be an Anti-Racist. So here's a plug to Greg. And we had a book read and discussion, facilitated discussion groups in the fall of 2020 that really helped staff get a better appreciation of where we want to be with our more intentional efforts around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So these are just some examples of things we've done over this past year to really help, again, be more intentional about these efforts. And it's something that we are committed to as an agency.
I love that you use the word intentionality.
Mhm.
It has to be purposeful. There has to be
Yes.
intention, and you can't just randomly do some things and spit into the wind and see what happens, right? You really, and I hear what you're saying about a journey. Sometimes it feels like one step forward, two steps back. But hopefully eventually there's 3 steps forward, maybe 2 steps back. So there's still forward progress.
That's exactly what I use. It's usually 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. Okay, we made some progress.
There you go.
Regroup.
Said camp services came out of work from the 1960s, really when civil rights was being brought into the public's eye, and here we are 60 years later. It does feel like we should be farther along, but we have made some progress, so that's great.
I agree. I'm glad you mentioned that.
As you have the How to Be an Anti-Racist book on your list, that is actually the textbook that we're using for the cultural competence class that the students have been engaging in discussion. It just brings up so many important points for us to think about, and then to put that into our own experiences. So it's a great jumping off point for people to begin the conversation.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that I see here that I just really appreciate is that you're thinking internally to your organization as well as externally, that staff absolutely has to be part of the process, and then to be aware of your external customers as well. So it's something that has to happen, again, in that holistic manner, inside and out, and that it's done in partnership, that we're not doing it to people.
Exactly.
That we're doing it with the people,
people.
And again, that it's what they're wanting and needing. So that's awesome.
Exactly.
You mentioned, that you'll be doing your needs assessment again. what do you think will be some of those anticipated needs that you're expecting to see in that report? There's always surprises and things that you didn't expect, but are there some things that you're anticipating that you will see?
Well, I think one thing that we've all are definitely more aware of now, especially in light of the pandemic, which I know everyone's tired of hearing about, but it did make us more aware of the need for access to services. And so I will say, I don't know if, and from technology, but then also just being more present in our communities. So CAP is very broad throughout our 5 counties, and we have a presence in an office space within each of our 5 counties. And so we're looking at ways of how we can better address some gaps for that access on both the technology side and just getting out into the communities and talking with people face to face. So those are some things I'm expecting to see will come up, is that people may not be or may not have been able to access our services over this past year and or as easily. And we had to shift a lot of our programming to virtual programming or take home packets on the early childhood side, and really had to pivot and adapt. And I will give kudos to all of CAP's staff for just being on top of it. And they were phenomenal, and still continue to be phenomenal in that planning. But I do feel some of the barriers will come up in terms of access. Another one, transportation, is something we hear about quite often. And then looking at income and economic stability. And ways to address those gaps. Those are usually the bigger ones. One that came up in 2019 was that safe and affordable housing. So housing is also something that I do expect will continue to be at the top of the priority list.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So housing just fits right in that foundational level that, yeah, we need to address that. And it does make a considerable difference for individuals.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what people may not be aware of is that CAP actually operates and maintains over 700 units of affordable housing throughout the state. So not just in our 5 county service area, but we're involved in several low-income housing tax credit projects across the state to help bring that affordable housing to communities. And we're looking at other ways we might be able to do that and other innovative models for housing. So we're continuing those discussions.
Yeah. As you said, the pandemic certainly magnified a lot of issues and really brought them to the forefront. So as you said, yeah, we're tired of the pandemic, but and we wish it never would have happened. But at the same time, it did raise our awareness, and it certainly made us all be creative and be innovative. And so again, you commented on the amazing response from staff and the ways that they found to still deliver services and help people as much as they possibly could, despite all of the limitations that we might have had.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our small city of Stevens Point is very diverse, and there's so many things to consider. Then when you start thinking about the entire county, Portage County, you manage 5 counties.
Yes.
How do you really think about 5 different counties and to keep their needs focused? That just seems like a big task. And tell us a little bit more about just what you do and how you do it.
Well, that's a great question, because it's true. Oftentimes people are aware of CAP services in the local communities. So many people in Stevens Point or the Stevens Point area, or even throughout Portage County, don't realize that CAP does offer programs and services across 5 counties. And I often have to remind them, we have 250 staff. We have a board of 21 who are representative across our 5 counties. And so our work, we have to make sure we maintain that focus. And we can't just solely be in one area or one community. We really need to make sure we're looking at each of the communities and what those local needs are. So we're dependent upon staff to really make sure that we have that transparent back and forth communication between staff and supervisors of what the local needs are, what they're seeing in the local community. You know, I myself can't be present in every office all the time. I wish I could, but I'm not able to do that. So I really do rely on that feedback from staff and the information that we obtain from those surveys, from our triennial needs assessment. But then we also have an annual survey that we do, a client satisfaction survey, we call it, to help try to keep a pulse on what's going on in each of these local areas. And our board of directors also, like I said, they are representative from each of our 5 counties. So they certainly keep me aware of what they would like to see in their local community. And sometimes we have the capacity to look at some of those options, but other times it's like, yeah, it's a great idea. We see it as a need. Let's maybe see if we can convene some partners. It's not quite in CAP's wheelhouse, but let's connect you with some partners. So we look at that too. So I'm still trying to find that balance and trying to, you know, right now recently been living in a virtual world. So I do feel I'm able to see staff probably more regularly than I would if I was driving around, but I miss that connection with staff and that interpersonal connection. So I am looking forward to that. But again, just making sure we maintain that open communication and are always on the lookout for opportunities that fit within the needs that we're hearing in each of the local areas. So it's a balancing act.
Absolutely. And
I often feel like I'm juggling. But
and maybe even dropping a few balls here.
And, it
you
happens.
can drop those that are plastic, but not those that are glass. So
right.
you know what the priorities really have to be and
Yeah.
maintain that.
Yeah.
But like you said, you have a staff and it's not something that you could do alone. So
No.
that kind of segues into if we had students who are interested in potentially working for CAP Services someday, what recommendations or advice would you have for them to prepare themselves to be professionals, either in the CAP Services nonprofit world or other human services professions that you work with?
Sure. Well, I would say probably one of the first things is to explore what your passions are. And you don't have to have just one, but explore what those passions might be, because you want to find something that you enjoy both within your work and then also outside of work. It's important to have that balance. And so, you know, one of my strongest passions is you know, helping to make sure we have the resources available so that people can, you know, live their best lives. And I think that's important to have that focus and, you know, and just be aware of what that looks like, both in a work environment and then outside of that work environment for that work-life balance. Because you really need to make sure you have passions outside of work so that you don't get to that burnout stage at work. This is a tough profession, but it's so worthwhile. And you really just need to make sure you are able to put your full self in both at work, and that requires making sure you have that balance of things that you enjoy outside of work as well. So you can come as your best self each and every day that you're coming to the office. That's probably my biggest thing. The other thing is working in the human service profession is to maintain a growth mindset. Always be looking for, you know, new ways to learn or new things to learn, be curious, ask questions. In this field, things are constantly evolving and changing. And when you're working with people, things are constantly evolving and changing. It's not predictable. And so it's important to make sure that you have that open mind and that growth mindset and look for opportunities to learn. That's something that's been really been helpful for me, because I would get frustrated, as you said, dropping balls, and I'm like, okay, take a step back, what can I learn from this experience? And so that just helps, helps whatever I might want to focus on in the future by taking those little nuggets, is what I call them, knowledge nuggets, and carrying them forward, and opportunities to learn. So I will say I'm somebody that does not embrace conflict. And as you know, working with people, conflict is going to happen. And especially in my role now, I have to be more conscious of, everyone has a different viewpoint and mindset, and we're not all always going to agree. So my strategy now is to look for, what can I learn from this situation? What can I learn from this other viewpoint? And so it helps approaching conflict from a different lens and a different viewpoint. And that has been very beneficial for me. And I would just say, lastly, it would be to embrace change and adaptability. In the human services field, it's, like I said, nothing's ever going to be constant. There's always going to be change, and just to have that mindset for adaptability and be able to shift and pivot and look for new ways to do things, I think would be important in this field, because it is constantly evolving and changing, and that's also what makes it very exciting. There's always new opportunities and for innovation and new ideas, and that's one of the reasons why I've really enjoyed working for CAP Services. And like I said, I've been here for 20 years. When I first started, I did not think that I would be here for 2 decades. And so, but it's that innovation and that ability to look for new ways to do things, and to evolve, I think, and not always do the same thing over and over, but look for ways to do things differently, and that might better enhance the community and the people we're working with.
So many great nuggets there. So I tend to always talk about nuggets of wisdom, but I'm going to steal your knowledge nuggets. I love that. So if I write a paper or something, I'm going to have to cite you, Nicole.
No, you can have it.
No, that's beautiful. Because I think I try to impart that on students all the time, that no matter what you do, you're always going to take away at least one nugget of something that's going to be beneficial, help you grow. And that idea of keeping that growth mindset and always wanting to learn, and what can I learn from this, rather than just getting down on yourself that something didn't quite go the way you hoped, or it wasn't as good. So what am I going to do differently? How do I make it better? And by having those clients and the people in your community counting on you to do that, just puts a little bit more weight to that, for sure. But the idea of adaptability, of course, is just key in human services. Like you said, people are people.
Yes.
There's no predicting things, and to be able to kind of roll with it. I'm a big baseball fan, and it is the All-Star game tonight. But there's a movie, Moneyball, if you've ever seen it, with Brad Pitt. And there's a line in there, and he talks about being adaptable. And the line is, adapt or die. I mean, we have to adapt. We have to keep growing and thriving. And that's how we do that. So just so many of the things you said just aligned so well for me anyway. And of course, you talked about discovering your passion, which that is our Stevens Point motto, discover your passion. So both at work and in life. And I think sometimes there's some overlap in there, but it's important to have those things that you just enjoy in both arenas, for your own well-being. Because we can't pour from an empty cup. And so we have to feel full and good about ourselves, that we can then give to others. So love all of your knowledge nuggets, Nicole. Any other knowledge nuggets you want to impart on us before we let you go today?
I don't think so. I'm really excited. And for everyone who's watching this, please reach out. We're happy to talk more if you have any questions or want any more information. I think, this is a great field to be in, and there's lots of opportunity. And again, life is a journey, and we're all learning along the way. And I encourage you to continue that along your path. And again, just please reach out if you have any questions. And our website again is capservices.org.
Wonderful. Well, we hopefully will have lots of lifelong learners.
Yes.
And because again, there's something new to learn every day from everyone that you meet. And again, the more diverse communities and people that you get to meet, the more you get to learn. So thanks for being part of our community and helping people achieve the well-being that they so deserve. So thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.